good morning, H2 listeners. Welcome back to the H2 Show studios above the Adamson Square. Do you know what today is? That's right. February 14th is the annual observance of National Ferris Wheel Day. The holiday honors the birth of George Washington Gale Ferris Jr., the man who invented the Ferris wheel. So, how did he invent the Ferris wheel? Preparations for the 1893 World's Columbian Exposition began in earnest in 1891. Director of Works for the fair, Daniel H. Burnham, laid out the challenge: create a centerpiece to the show that will rival the Eiffel Tower in Paris. Erected the year before, the Eiffel Tower quickly became the world attraction. Ideas were tossed about, plans presented, and plans rejected. But George Washington Gale Ferris was inspired. He contemplated several ideas, but it wasn't until one evening in a Chicago chop house that he struck on an idea that could fit the challenge. After sketching out the design on a napkin, he proceeded to develop his plans. When presented with the concept, Burnham balked. Doubting it could safely carry people to such heights, Ferris persisted, spending $25,000 of his own money. He paid for safety studies and obtained $600,000 more from investors. He hired engineers, and he built the 250 diameter wheel. Hold on one second. Oh, man, if you just want to look weird, drink on video. I didn't know that was going to be so strange. And hoisted it up between 150-foot twin towers. 150. So this is a 250-foot Ferris wheel on 150-foot twin towers. It was a colossal success at 26 stories tall and making a whopping $726,805. In 1893, that was a hefty profit for the fair. Despite the wheel's success, Ferris struggled after the fair. Lawsuits over who owed who bankrupted him. His wife left him in 1896. And a few short years later, after the fair, he died at the age of 37 of typhoid fever. Obviously, typhoid fever, the bane of every child's existence. The original wheel suffered a similar fate. In 1906, it was destroyed with dynamite for scrap metal. However, the Ferris wheel lives on, and we continue to enjoy wheels around the world. So the reason why I said typhoid fever is the bane of every child's existence. Anybody who's ever played Oregon Trail knows that it's typhoid fever, or you die of starvation and you can't kill enough squirrels because they stop sending you the bears and the buffaloes, and all you get is squirrels, and then you waste all your bullets, then your wheel breaks, and then you all die. One's got a broken arm, one's got a broken leg. It was miserable. Those little floppy disks were really tilting back when we were kids. Let's talk about some wheels around the world. In Tianjin Ferris wheel in Tianjin, China, is built over a bridge spanning the Hai River. The London Eye overlooks the Thames River in London, and the eccentric wheel company built the ever-classic Wonder Wheel of Coney Island in New York City from 1918 to 1920. Take your breath away looking over Niagara Falls from a seat on the Niagara Skywheel in Canada, or take in the sights and sounds high above Centennial Olympic Park on the Skyview Atlanta. So, I know what you're thinking. It's not just Ferris Wheel Day. Okay, you're right. It is also a very important day. National Cream-Filled Chocolate Day. Let's go. Chocolate lovers can rejoice as February 14th is the National Cream-Filled Chocolates Day. On the same day every year, approximately 58 million pounds of chocolate will be purchased. Much of it will be in heart-shaped boxes filled with bite-sized chocolates with ooey gooey centers, and quite a few of these cream-filled goodies will be exchanged and shared. Oh yes, it's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day. And let's get into the history of Valentine's Day. Valentine's Day began as Saint Valentine's Day, a liturgical of one or more early Christian saints named Valentinus. February 14th first became associated with romantic love during the High Middle Ages, as the tradition of courtly love was then flourishing. During the 18th century in England, this day evolved into an occasion in which lovers expressed their love for each other by presenting flowers, offering confectionaries, and sending Valentine's cards. So I love a good origin story. So let's talk about the ancient history of Valentine's Day. There are mixed opinions, and various ones prevailed regarding who or what was celebrated in mid February. At some point, two martyred saints by the name of Valentine or Valentinus. The most popular story tells of the saint who defied a decree by Emperor Claudius II, who outlawed marriage for young men because he believed that single men made better soldiers. St. Valentine, preferring young lovers to be wed than having them sneak around, or believing in the power of love, whichever one you want to pick, would marry them in secret. However, it may have been another Valentine who performed the marriages. Either way, at least two of them were beheaded for their actions. So, hey, love can be deadly, apparently. But, let's celebrate it today as St. Valentine suffered for us. Let's enjoy each other's company and keep the tradition alive. Another possible origin for Valentine's Day takes us back to a pagan festival called Lupercalia. Credit is traditionally given to Pope Gelasius for declaring February 14th as St. Valentine's Day around the year 496 to separate the church from the Roman celebration of Lupercalia, which is an ancient pagan fertility festival that occurred on February 15th. So obviously he wanted to, celebrate it on the 14th so that on February 15th, everybody would be all partied out that was in the Christian faith. So fast forwarding a little to more recent times, since the Renaissance, we've been exchanging Valentine's cards. These handmade missives of romance grew into a more commercial venture by the Victorian era. Everybody's looking for a way to make money. Now Hallmark continues the tradition, right? Today, school children exchange Valentine's greetings too. They prepare for the day by making unique boxes to receive their many hearts and cupids and pun-filled rhymes. Hey, and if you can, just go ahead and get, one for every kid in the class. Just go ahead and make everybody feel included, especially when they're younger. Chocolates and candy have also become a part of the celebration. While couples tend to be the focus of the day, singles celebrate being single too. Friends take each other out or reject the overall notion of Valentine's Day. Dinner and a movie, candlelight, and flowers also fit the bill for couples. It's one of the busiest days of the year for florists, obviously. So however you choose to celebrate Valentine's Day, make sure your loved ones know that you love them. And that's the most important part. So with that, let's transition to this day in history. Today in history, in 1876, Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. In 1849, photographer Matthew Brady took the first photograph of a U.S. president in office, and that was James Polk, the 11th president. In 1918, the movie Tarzan of the Apes was released. In 1924, the IBM Corporation was founded. In 1929, the St. Valentine's Day Massacre occurred in Chicago as 7 members of the Bugs Moran gang were gunned down by 5 of Al Capone's mobsters posing as police. In 1949, the Knesset, which is the Parliament of Israel, was convening for the first time. Sorry, move that out of the way so y'all can't see it, but I do need water. In 1989, Union Carbide finally agreed to pay damages to the Indian government for the Bhopal disaster. The company had a yearly turnover of $9.5 billion in USD. At the time, up to 25,000 people had died in the tragedy. Bhopal, the situation there, and we can go into it as a more storytelling opportunity for us. But what occurred is there were lots of Indian people, this is in India, that were living around the plant. And the plant had a leak of a chemical, which ultimately led to the deaths of as many as 25,000 people. In the year 2000, the first spacecraft orbits an asteroid. In 2003, Dolly the sheep is put to death. So Dolly was the first mammal to be cloned from an adult, and she had shown premature signs of aging and contracted various diseases. I'm not sure what the cause of that was. It could be telomeres on the ends of the DNA being shortened by maybe the cloning process. Not totally sure. In 2005, the former Lebanese Prime Minister, Rafiki Harati, is assassinated. Several sources reported that the UN Special Tribunal for Lebanon found compelling evidence for the Lebanese militia Hezbollah's involvement. So, with that is the conclusion of this day in history. Let's transition to wish some folks a happy birthday. Let me come back to this century with my color. There's me. Hold on one sec. Ooh, I don't like that. So, hey, down in the comments, if you would, share with us what you're doing for Valentine's Day. What did you get your Valentine? Did you write them a poem? Did you get them a card? Just tell us what you got your Valentine today. All right, and let's move on, like I say, to birthdays. So I would like to say happy birthday to Rob Thomas of Matchbox 20. We aren't crazy. We're just a little unwell. I know right now you can't tell. Stay a while and maybe you'll see that Rob Thomas is turning 53. So one of my favorite things about Rob Thomas, and while I love all of his music as Matchbox 20, is the song Smooth that he did with Carlos Santana. I remember frequently me and my dad would be riding over to the Bowden Par 3. Shout out to the Bowden Par 3 and shout out to my dad. And we would listen to that song Smooth, and he would tell me, hey, if you would make sure that your golf swing matches with the song, then you might have a little more success. So maybe don't overthink it. Don't grip it and rip it, but just swing through the ball. Anyway, happy birthday to Michael Bloomberg, Drew Bledsoe, and Jim Kelly. And with that, let's transition over to some national news. So yesterday I told you about egg prices being as much as 53% higher year over year, and I wanted to dive into that further. So I read through a Think Global Health article detailing what the egg market looks like and what it's doing and why the prices have risen so high. Give me 1 second to get some water. All right, back. So on Wednesday, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics released its monthly price data. It showed that the average cost of large grade A eggs is the highest in 45 years, non-inflation adjusted. And the price is the second highest, falling just 15 cents short of the record set in January 2023 after adjusting for seasonal inflation. Whoa. The real threat here is that there's a new novel bird flu virus. The new version of the virus emerged in the wild migratory birds in September of 2024 and then jumped to domestic fowl, F-O-W-L. The main issue has been the emergence of a new genotype, the D1.1, said David Swain, who's a DVM and PhD. He's an avian influenza expert and private consultant who worked for the U.S. Department of Agriculture for nearly 30 years. It really has spread across all of North America's 4 migratory waterfowl flyways. The D1.1 genotype has spilled not only into poultry, but also to humans and to cows. It is behind November's severe flu case in British Columbia, as well as the recent H5N1 death in Louisiana. This is the first in the United States, and on January 31st, the USDA announced that D1.1 had been detected in Nevada's milk supply. And the virus is suspected in a mild case recorded in one of the state's dairy workers. So the arrival of D1.1 could signify a turning point in the H5N1 outbreak. Over December and January, owners of commercial, backyard, and hobbyist chicken flocks had to cull as many as 41.4 million birds because of influenza exposure. So something we do is in the U.S. is called biosecurity. And when there is a known exposure or believed to be an exposure, rather than let that continue and see if they develop the virus, we actually will go ahead and preliminarily cull the bird. meaning kill off the flock in order to just ensure the better health of all of the various farms and chickens that we have out there. So that is a process. So they do testing and detection, which we'll get into later, but also culling. So that is 3 times more than the same period last year. And the past 2 months are the most destructive stretch of the North American outbreak, which initially arrived 3 years ago via migrating birds from Europe. So if you're the farmer, I'm sorry, is what the article says. The statistics don't count how devastating it is for them. It's devastating to have to put your animals down, and that's according to Rocio Crespo, a professor and poultry veterinarian at North Carolina State University. So we can sit here and talk about it as if it's just a statistic, but for the farmers, obviously that's their livelihood. In the United States, most egg-laying farms maintain fewer than 100 chickens, but large producers can house more than 100,000. Broiler farms for raising chickens for meat average about 40,000 chickens, with large operations carrying more than 500,000 or 500,000 chickens. So if you will, imagine with me culling one of those farms. The body stacked up. I mean, that's going to take an emotional and physical toll on the farmer and on the workers at the farm. Yet hope remains, because the overwhelming majority of bird flu outbreaks since 1959 have been eliminated by deploying biosecurity, like we talked about before, disease surveillance, so monitoring how often animals die via national causes, and when that becomes outside of control, then ultimately acting accordingly. And in some cases, that means culling the entire flock. And then vaccines. So while biosecurity and disease surveillance have been the primary and most prominently used methods in the first world countries, the veracity of the strain of bird flu that we have now has led to the consideration of use of vaccines. So there is a stigma on vaccinations for influenza in birds, as it is assumed that if you vaccinate, then you are hiding something. Happy Valentine's Day, Arian. And if you're hiding infections, the disease there's a belief that it could spread from infected but not dead or showing signs of illness poultry to healthy poultry. That assumption has proven largely untrue in practice, and the article presumes that if the U.S. deploys vaccines, it will be a targeted approach at higher risk farms. Something that's interesting about how many farms have had to cull birds, it's frequently been the same farms. So there's been a recurrence at some of those farms, and so it seems that some farms seem to get reinfected despite the culling. So on that front, a local company, a company that has invested in Douglasville, Zoetis has been granted the conditional license for its avian influenza vaccine, the H5N1 subtype killed virus. This vaccine is intended for use in chickens to aid in the prevention of disease, obviously called avian influenza. And the USDA's decision to grant the conditional license is part of the broader effort described before to combat the ongoing avian influenza outbreak. So I would say if you can, support Zoetis as they're doing this research. They do other things in terms of distribution of pharmaceuticals for your pets. So take advantage of that. And they did or are in the process of investing around $100 million into Douglasville, Georgia, at a facility there. But with that, I pose the question back to you. What are your thoughts about the egg situation? Do you think vaccines are good or bad in this situation? And how would you like to see it handled? Would you want a more targeted approach, or is there some other way we should be handling this? But with that, let's move over to some local news. So let's hop over to an article from Gradic Communications. This one was about a set of folks here in Carroll County. So there's more than 30 Carroll County residents have attached their name to a petition filed in the Carroll County Superior Court this week. They're challenging the recent alleged actions by the city of Villa Rica and the Embry Developments Company, as well as another property owner. And this is in regards to more than 200 acres of land on or between Hickory Level Road and South Van Wert Road. The petitioners claim to be adjacent and adjoining landowners both in Carroll County and in the city of Villa Rica, and they object to the annexation of the subject land out of Carroll County and object to the rezoning of all 3 subject parcels in Villa Rica. And the reason they do this is because of a host of issues they see between Embry and the city of Villa Rica. The petitioners are hoping to stop a reported plan for a 400-acre data center in that area. The petitioners state the construction of a data center will immediately and directly adversely impact the land quality and their quality of life. And the defendants have about 30 days to respond, or have exactly 30 days to respond to this in court. So with that, that's another thing I want to think about. Let's mull over the idea of progress. I was recently in a similar situation where I felt like I was standing in the way of progress, and we had to make concessions or try to get concessions from someone to make life a little better for the folks that were still going to be living next to this new development. What's your thoughts on that? Is progress, is it your responsibility as the landowner to give up for the social good, your own good? I mean, I don't know, something to think about. So data centers are noisy, they're loud, they consume a lot of energy. So I'm going to have to pause for just 1 second and I'll be right back. Sorry about that. Okay. Got a little off script for a minute. Let's go to the verse of the day. So remember that we at the H2 Show love you, and we want you to succeed. Whether you're a believer or not, we think you can get something positive from the verse of the day each day. And with that, let's read. The verse of the day comes from Jude. Jude, a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ and a brother of James, to those who have been called, who are loved in God the Father and kept for Christ, mercy, peace, and love be yours in abundance. And that's Jude 1:1-2, and that's from the NIV. The reason I picked that one, because obviously it's not the Bible app verse of the day, is because of, well, first of all, I looked up other apps that I could review as well. But what is Jude telling us? So he wrote this letter to a church, and he was writing this letter to try to encourage, but also rebuke the church. And later in here, he talks about the false teachings of how that can impact a church and how you have to guard your heart against it. But he is giving a promise there before he gives the premise of what's required to get that promise. And the promise there is that God has love and abundance for those that are committed to his purposes. So if you'll commit to what God's mission is and be mission-focused and others-centered, then you too can have God's promise of love in abundance. So with that, here on the show, we don't like to say goodbye. We like to see you soon. I know that you're going to do great things because you know how to do hard things. We've been together, I think it's going on 15 episodes. Happy Valentine's Day, first of all. We love you. We want to see you be successful. We'll continue to have shows. I've had one at lunch today. We're going to go, one of the things that we said we were going to do, which is have a Faith-Filled Friday. and have a little lunch discussion. So watch for us to go live there. You know that on Tuesday of next week, we have a big concert coming up with Colton Blue. So we will be sponsoring that, having him in and trying to get him all set up around 11 a.m. So it should be another amazing performance by him. That has been one of the best things we've done on the show. I love you guys. I'm so glad that you've chosen to be H2 listeners. I want you to continue to show back up. With that, let me just say, see you real soon. Because
at the end of the day, the day got to end.